Just 7 days before Christmas, Pyrocynical has responded to the allegations, again, this time in video form where he goes in much more detail. Actually, really, the purpose of this video is to respond to Turkey Tom's document proving Pyrocynical's guilt, which, in my opinion, was a fantastic document. Now, let me be upfront, alright? Let me be honest in my positions here. Now, most of my channel subs know my position, alright? But I'm talking about, like, the new people that are just coming in, alright? I believe, which is a keyword, that doesn't mean I know or I'm saying 100%, but I believe, based on the circumstantial evidence that I have seen, that Pyro did in fact know the age, alright? And the reason why I believe that is because it really comes down to anecdotal evidence and circumstantial evidence, which are neither things that you can prove in a situation. And this is why Pyrocynical is probably going to get out on top of this situation now that he's responded, because you cannot prove circumstantial evidence. And to be fair, nobody that said that, well, I mean, at least not me, not Turkey Tom, in my opinion, or that I know of. We didn't say that we know, we just said that we believe that he knew the age of Ivory, alright? Because, I mean, and this is where I come from, but when I'm talking to people on Discord, like, for instance, Aiden is 15 years old, alright? I know that. Everybody knows Aiden is 15 or whatever. And he's very public about his age, everybody knows he's like a kid or whatever. And just based on that, like when you're talking to somebody, you know, significantly younger, and when I say significantly younger, I'm talking like 3 to 4 years down from you or whatever, you kind of know their age. Like, usually you know their age. Obviously, that doesn't mean you always know somebody's age when you're talking to them, but based on what I've seen from this document, and based on what I, you know, anecdotally have experienced, I feel like, you know, and based on the fact that Ivory said in DMs that he was a minor, and Pyro's response to that in his video was that he simply did not see the DM and did not see, like, the tweets or whatever because he was suspended, and that one tweet that Ivory had made, while Pyrocynical wasn't suspended, he just claimed to have never seen or whatever. It is reasonable, and I can see why people think that Pyro didn't know the age. I personally just still, like, I don't know, it still looks suspicious to me, alright? But here's the deal, alright? Pyrocynical responded to everything, alright? He talked about everything. He talked about, really the nature of these conversations, which he claims were never sexual. This was fantasy roleplay, alright? And look, I'm not a furry, alright? I've never known a furry. I don't know, I don't hang around these people, alright? So I don't really get it, you know what I mean? But according to him, who is now a self-admitted furry, I guess, the secret's out, the secret that pretty much everyone knew anyway, that he claims he was so embarrassed about people knowing. Everybody knows this guy is a furry now. And according to him, because of that, the nature of their conversations was not sexual in the slightest. He claims that, in fact, he says this word for word in the video, that if he'd been having these same conversations with some 99-year-old, like, troll under a bridge or whatever, it would have been the same in nature or whatever. Not to excuse it, but he's basically saying that these conversations were fantasy roleplay. It didn't matter that Ivory was 15. It didn't matter, like, you know, he didn't need to know who Ivory was, what he sounded like, what he looked like or whatever to engage in these roleplay conversations. It could have been interchangeably with anyone. And he doesn't say that to excuse himself, mind you. He fully acknowledges that it was his responsibility to verify the age. It's the whole Pro Jared situation all over again. And it's something that Nick Diorio talked about. It is a YouTuber's responsibility, if they're going to engage in conversations like this with their fans, they must find the age. I don't care if it's fantasy roleplay or if it's just traditional sexting, you know, nudes are being exchanged or whatever, which, by the way, as far as we know, and according to what Pyro claims, did not happen. Here's the deal, alright? Here's the situation. For most people, alright, it don't matter if it was furry roleplay or fantasizing or whatever. That doesn't matter, alright? These conversations were obviously sexual. They were sharing, lewd art together. They were talking about sexual things or whatever. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that these conversations were, in fact, sexual in nature, alright? And that's a bad thing, and Pyro himself acknowledges that and apologizes for that. He even goes after his girlfriend. Well, I shouldn't say go after, but he does call her out. He does condemn what she did when she was going into Ivory's DMs, chastising him for coming out with the whole situation in the first place, alright? Here's the deal, and this is something we've already talked about. Pyrocynical, unfortunately, is not, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but Pyrocynical is not a groomer, alright? In order to prove that Pyrocynical is a groomer, you must prove that Pyrocynical intended to elevate or to escalate these conversations from just furry roleplay, whatever that is, to something, you know, sexual in nature, to get something out of him, or whatever. Which can never be proven. The only thing people can latch onto is the fact that Pyrocynical invited Ivory to a UK event. But apparently, according to Pyrocynical, he invited multiple people to this UK event. He invited Sive Morton even, who even appeared in Pyrocynical's video or whatever. He copy-pasted the invitation to everybody he knew. And that's all according to him, of course. So, what I'm saying here is that I'm breaking this all down or whatever. These conversations do in fact exist, that's obvious, and they're wrong, and Pyro admits that they're wrong, and Pyro even admits that his girlfriend, chastising Ivory for coming out with this stuff, is all wrong. What this comes down to is whether or not Pyrocynical knew Ivory was 15 when he engaged in these conversations. Not that even if he didn't know, it would make the situation better. I mean, Ivory was 15 when these conversations took place. And later on, Pyro would obviously know that he was 16. Now, Turkey Tom throws out 5 convenient points to suggest that Pyrocynical probably knew the age or whatever. And Pyrocynical responds to all of these points. So I have his points written down, and I have Turkey Tom's points written down here. Firstly, Pyrocynical never saw the initial DM from Ivory saying he was a minor. According to Pyrocynical, and let's see if I can find it here, there was some DMs exchanged where, where is it? Where basically Ivory says in a wall of text that he was in fact a minor. Not only am I a minor, alright? Now Pyrocynical debunks this in 2 ways, alright? Well, he responds to this in 2 ways. He says, A, this DM where he says he was a minor was sent when he was 16 according to the dates of the Discord DMs, and 2, he simply did not see this DM, which is a convenient excuse, I'll be honest with you, alright? That's a little bit of a weird excuse, but that's his excuse, that's his word, make of that what you will. Number 2, Pyrocynical never saw the DM where Ivory sent him his Twitter profile clearly stating his age. Pyrocynical talks about this and says that the DM where Ivory sends his Twitter profile shows that his age was 16 at the time. Obviously, 16 and 19, or 16 and 20, are legal in UK law. Also, this was after, obviously, he was 15. So, that's an issue right there. Number 3, Pyrocynical, who at the time was expressing interest in Ivory and being in a relationship with him at the time, which was corroborated by Pyrocynical's at the time soon-to-be girlfriend, still never knew Ivory's age, an age which Ida clearly acknowledged, and an age which she thought would not dissuade him from being in a relationship with Ivory. Pyrocynical responds to this by saying that the girl Ida, who he would soon to date, that knew Ivory's age because she talked to Ivory, and Ivory even said, like, I kind of feel weird, I'm 15 or whatever. Turkey Tom's basically saying that if she knew, how the fuck did Pyro not know? And then Pyro responds to that by saying, well, wait, I wasn't dating this girl till 2 years later. I didn't date her till 2019. We're talking about 2017. So why would this girl, who I barely had a conversation with, confide with me personal information about this other random person that she's talking to me at the time, when we barely had these kinds of conversations in the first place? Which is a reasonable, I'll be honest with you, that is a reasonable response from Pyrocynical. Unless there's evidence that Pyro and Ida were a lot closer than he makes out in his video or whatever, that's a reasonable response to me. 4, Pyrocynical never saw any of the tweets of Ivory explicitly saying he was 15 years old on an account Pyrocynical followed and interacted with regularly. Now, we've talked about this point before. Ivory would always go on, well, not always, but he has multiple tweets saying that he was 15 years old. The only tweet that Pyro would have seen on his Twitter account before it was banned was the one at the bottom. Pyrocynical responds to this by saying, I followed hundreds of people at the time. How could I have possibly seen this one? Which you can argue is a convenient excuse, but at the same time, it's also it's a reasonable response. A lot of this comes down to what Pyro's saying sounds like okay, well, yeah, that nice excuse, buddy. But you can't really argue against it because, again, this is circumstantial. And this is the situation that puts Tom in a tricky spot. Look, I like Tom. He's my guy. And even now, I'm honest with you guys, based on what I've seen, based on what I know, or whatever, you know, anecdotally, of course, it makes sense to me that Pyrocynical would, in fact, know the age of Ivory. But at the same time, it also makes sense that maybe, in fact, he didn't know, all right? I'm leaning on he did, all right? I'm sticking to what I believe. But it's what I believe. It's not what I know at the end of the day. And what I believe is irrelevant in the grand, larger conversation. So anyway, going back to the points. The fifth one. Somehow, Ivory never mentioned his age, and no one else mentioned his age in the presence of Pyrocynical outside of all these clear instances even once. Which is just, this point, again, Pyrocynical, there's no real way to respond to this. Like, oh, well, he must have known. Pyrocynical could just say, oh, well, I didn't know. So, again. Look, here's the deal, alright? And the one thing I'll say about Pyrocynical's response that was a little bit weird to me, alright? Was that there was apparently a DM, and I didn't even know about this, but there was apparently a DM where Pyrocynical was asking somebody, how do I mass delete my Discord messages? And so obviously everybody latched onto this and was like, wait, this looks really suspicious. Why does Pyro want to mass delete all of his Discord messages? Pyro responds to that in the video by saying that he wanted to delete all of his furry roleplay, not to hide evidence that he was a groomer or whatever, but rather to cover up the fact that he's a furry and to delete embarrassing old conversations. This is a little bit strange to me. I mean, again, you kind of have to take his word at that. I mean, I don't know why you would care about that at that point. To me, if you're going to be that outlandish in the DMs or whatever, you're going to be that pro-furry or whatever, I mean, just embrace it. And that's what he says he's doing now, but he says he also hates himself for this stuff. He believes that being a furry is degenerate, and he hates himself for it. He thinks it's disgusting, but he can't help what he's into. And he didn't want the whole world knowing about this, but of course now everyone knows. And the reason why he wanted to delete all these Discord DMs was he was embarrassed, basically. Which I found to be an interesting point. Again, I'm gonna have to take his word at it. Again, I'm not a furry, alright? I don't know furries. I don't know what they're like, or the embarrassment, the shame, you know, the how fantasy works or something like that. I mean, it's a foreign concept to me, I'll be honest with you. But that's his response to that point, at least. And ultimately, what this comes down to at the end of the day is, it's what you believe versus what you know. You can believe anything you want, alright? You can believe that Pyrocynical knew the age of Ivory. You can believe that, but if you can't prove that, then Pyro's free. He gets to walk away free. He's fine, alright? He can make this video, which is getting a ton of praise, by the way. He can make this video, he can be like, yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know. And you can be like, well, actually, I think you knew. But that doesn't really do anything in the grand scheme of things. Again, I'm sticking to what I believe. I'm sticking to what I think. But at the end of the day, that's just what I think. And unless we see more proof to even further back up what we believe, that ends the conversation right there. As far as I know, Pyrocynical, what we know is confirmed is he's not a groomer. And even if he knew that Ivory is 15, I'm sorry, but he's also not a pedophile or a predator either. That was never the conversation, by the way. Pyro seems to think in his video, and he addresses this a lot in his video, that everybody was out to call him a pedo, right? Nobody called him a pedo. Nobody called him a sexual harasser or, you know, an abuser or predator or anything. They were just saying that it's fucking weird, and it's a really big lapse in judgment to be DMing your fans at that age and having those kinds of conversations with them. Nobody said he was a pedo. I feel like anybody who's calling him a pedo just uses that word way too liberally. They're just saying it's weird. And that is still an objective fact at the end of the day. No matter what you think, what you believe, or whatever, it's still just wrong what he did. And he knows that. And he apologized for that. So, that's my breakdown of Pyrocynical's response. Hopefully, I was as fair as possible. I'm really trying to walk in this situation very delicately, and hopefully I succeeded in doing that. Anyway, guys, you guys hear the music. My name is Augie RFC. I'll see you guys later, everyone. That's your response to the Pyrocynical situation. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments if I can speak. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good night.